Welcome to another episode of SyncRiffs. My name is Charles Levan, President and CEO from Blue Buddha Entertainment. It's May, AAPI month, wrapping up the month, and we have a special guest in the studio. We have Music Supervisor Bianca Valencia, who you would have known her work in the past. Productions like Little Wing, India Sweets and Spices, and also the hit show on Fox, The Cleaning Lady. And welcome, Bianca. So great to have you. How's it going today?
Doing good. Thanks for having me, Charles. So glad to be on SyncRiffs.
I appreciate you and heard great things about you through our mutual friend.
Oh,
Shout out to Casey Dunmore, Spilkus, aka Spilkus.
likewise. Hey, Casey. Happy birthday.
Indeed, Casey is over in Europe right now, and can't wait to catch up with him when he gets back. But yeah, setting the stage for our chat with it being AAPI month, kind of wanted to go back and hear about, when you started your career in the music supervision field, um, early mentors in the space. Did you have an AAPI mentor? And if not, how did you navigate obstacles and challenges in the industry and as you continue today?
I actually, interestingly enough, I didn't have an Asian or a Pacific Islander mentor in entertainment as I was navigating through my journey. But that being said, I did have like a lot of like Asian or like I'm Filipino American, so Filipino role models to look up to. Not specifically in the media so much as within my own family. My both of my grandmothers, both my mom's mom and my dad's dad have always been huge role models to me, and I feel like all throughout the struggle and journey of finding myself in supervision and in other related like creative fields, it's always been challenging, and they have been supportive from day one and been my number one friends from day one. And that's what kept me going despite how difficult or seemingly unsuccessful it might have felt like in the beginning. They're just like my Lola would just be like, no, I believe in you. You can do it. And at the end of the day, like, you just want to make your grandparents proud. And
Yeah.
if nobody else believes in you, even when you don't believe in you, like if your family believes in you, it really does help like a lot. That support system is immense. And I think it's really important to have a support system like that when you're navigating a field like a creative field.
Mm.
It's hard.
Yeah, and 100%, I couldn't agree more, Bianca. So, did you find that over the years, I shared this with Angela Leis and Rudy Chung from Netflix, who, when I started out in about 2002, going to events, I would see them, and our numbers were very limited back then as far as Asians being in the creative space, but our numbers have grown over the years. So obviously within your circle of whether it's supervisors or composers or showrunners, when would you say that you kind of turned a corner and said, hey, there's more than 10 of us that I'm seeing or working with?
I mean, I think it kind of started happening around the same time that I started working on The Cleaning Lady for Miranda Kwok. I mean, it was such a blessing to be able to collaborate with her and to be able to meet such wonderfully talented people like Ruby Ibarra, Miranda herself, of course, a lot of the writers on the show, producers, editors, Diva Magpayo, shout out to her. She's an amazing editor. I'm sure I'm missing a few names and I apologize if I am, but that was the first time that I actually worked on a production about Asian Americans with Asian Americans, and it was very empowering to see our stories being told by our people.
Mm-hmm.
But with the exception of that, kind of like similar to your experience in, did you say the early 2000s or like late 90s, around that time frame?
Mm-hmm.
I would probably be like one of like two or three Filipino or Asians in a room of sync people. And we kind of like congregate, we would just like find each other. We kind of gravitate to each other because we're like, oh, we look like each other and like, let's hang. Like that's like the perfect icebreaker. But I'm meeting more of us like now that, and I think it also was just like trying to, the more you go out, I'm not the most social person. I'm mostly introverted. So it's like, when I force myself to go out and be social, I'm finding that like, oh wait, there actually are a lot of us in the industry But like you said earlier, it's things like SyncRiff and like other Asian American Pacific Islander proud like music companies or film festivals. Just like creative outlets. If we're able to band together through those organizations, we can find one another. It's just a
Mhm.
matter of actually putting yourself out there, I guess. Yeah,
Definitely. It's I think it's, and to go back to the cleaning lady, it's something that Ruby had touched on when we interviewed. We had a panel and she was on it and she was saying what was neat about that, to echo your point, Bianca, is authenticity of the storytelling and the music, and therefore, having a space both in front of and behind the camera. And so tell us a little about how you've got that gig. So you knew the showrunner, or how did that kind of develop?
I'm good friends with my co-music supervisor, Yvette Metoyer, and she was kind enough to bring me on board with her. She has known Miranda for a while. They're also friends.
Well,
So it's just yeah, through friends of friends. Shout out to Yvette, she's amazing.
yeah, no, the best. And I think you that's a point that we had echoed in several other episodes of the podcast about, and Casey Dunmore, shout out to him. He had said this, where it's, you know, fostering the community and collaboration throughout the year and staying in touch with each
Yeah,
other.
staying in touch
Because
is crucial. Yeah,
yeah, the follow through, because as we all know, life happens, emails happen, and we get back into the rabbit hole, and then we're both in Los Angeles, and it's it can be a chore sometimes going to an event or going to a show, and that type of thing. But so tell us about also, correct, about 3 weeks ago, there was, I can't remember who hosted it, but it was pretty
film
much,
creative,
that's
film
right.
creative. Yeah.
And it was Ruby was there, and it was pretty much the cast from the cleaning lady.
Correct. Yes. Miranda was kind to invite most of the cast and crew out to Philam Creative's in-person panel, and they featured a special performance of Ruby Ibarra's songs. It was
Mhm.
great. There was tons of Filipino food, lots of goodies. We were
Nice.
able to chat with all the attendees after. It was very inspiring to be like for everyone to be together and to kind of like bounce ideas off of each other and to hear other people's stories, whether they're the beginning of their journey or they're like kind of in
Mhm.
the middle or they've just been doing it for like a decade or more. It was great. I really enjoyed that. I'm so glad that Miranda brought us together for that and Phil I'm Creative.
Yeah, amazing. It looks, unfortunately I wasn't able to attend, but I saw the playback. It looked like a great event. And
Thank
yeah, to,
you.
thread the needle, Bianca, with, because correct, and I'm remiss on forgetting their names, but there was two, I think it was a father, son, two composers that worked with Ruby on this
Mhm.
for,
Yes.
mhm,
That's correct. Mark Isham is the composer for The Cleaning Lady, and Nick Isham is a composer as well. But he worked with her. Mark is in charge of the score with his assistant composer Allison. But Nick and Ruby worked for special compositions for the show. So oftentimes the two would collaborate, get into the studio together, jam it out, like crank out some songs, and then present it to our showrunners and producers for potential use in the television show. And we've used a good amount of their songs, and we were really happy with the tracks that they came up with together. They made lots of magic together. It was great.
yeah, no, and thanks for explaining that, because that's something I wanted to sort of touch on with, um, speaking with other music supervisors like yourself, where, so be if you can kind of take us through it, it's cool to connect the dots and look at your process. But obviously before, so you go through the script, you get into that mind of the character. Walk us through sort of the sonic palette, if you will, for a show, and where you start your research, and what how much input from the showrunner, as far as if they have their vision, or is it 50-50? Kind of take us through that process, if you would.
Well, like with any other creative process. There's lots of cooks in the kitchen. It's not just my Yvette and myself that were working on the soundtrack and the songs for the TV show. It was also the showrunners, as you mentioned, Miranda Kwok and Melissa Carter, who did seasons 1 and 2 with her, along with the network execs, of course. And there's a lot of them. So it kind of goes through a filtering process, but personally, for me, whenever I'm presented with a project, I read all the scripts that are involved. So episodes 1 through, let's say, 12, 1 through 12. Um, and I do something that's called a music breakdown, where I would just write down the music cues that are written in. Of course, not all of these will make it into the show. Some of them do, some of them don't. But my favorite thing to do outside of taking physical notes of what's written in specifically is to do character vibes. So, for example, the protagonist Tony, I created different genre folders for her personality. Or Fiona, her best friend in the show, I made different genre and subgenre folders for her personality, and so on and so forth. Armand and all the other characters. And then we kind of feed it to our editors, and they're able to like pull from what they like, and insert it into the show. And fingers crossed, hopefully, like something, there's some synergy there between the creative from the showrunners and producers, and the creative from the editors and supervisors. But oftentimes there is. It kind of, I guess it's a balance of getting to know the musical tastes and vibes of your collaborators, and kind of like have like figuring out a way to like have that vibe with your own musical taste. And it's not always the same because we're all so different. Like,
Yeah.
how do we define good music? What you and I might think is good, it might not be good to somebody else. So it is a learning process, and it can be challenging, but that's part of the fun. And that way you can get really creative too.
Yeah, it's to quote a phrase, or it's so true when the business that we're in, there's no shortage of music. And when starting in 2002, there was no SoundCloud, there was no Spotify, and it's just hats off to what you do in a daily basis. Because I know between managing the creative clearance, you know um, and then your deadlines from week to week, correct, you have to forward plan everything. There's a lot of plate spinning. And one kind of side question is, like you said, if there's a pro tag or antag in the show, well, sometimes if a certain song really fits a character, are there cases where that same song will be licensed for multiple episodes because it just works so well, or it just kind of depends on a case by case?
I think it depends case by case. I don't think that the showrunners would be opposed to that, and neither would the supervisors, as long as it kind of works for the creative. I mean, at the end of the day,
Mhm.
we're serving the show, so if
Mhm.
it works for the creative, that's great.
Mhm.
I personally probably would like to feature different music in every episode. Not to say that we won't repeat artists, because I'm down. I mean, we're all down for that. It's just I always like to think of supervision in any medium as an opportunity to give exposure to artists that deserve it. So the more
Yeah.
artists, the more variety of artists that we have throughout a season or within a feature or whatever you're working on, the better. I
Mhm.
think it's the more we have, the more variety we have, the greater, and
Mhm.
the more unknown artists that I can squeeze into a project, the better. Because that's actually one of the reasons why I was inspired to pursue music supervision. I wanted to be able to help my friends that are artists and musicians themselves get the exposure that they deserve, because they're so talented. But there's so much music out there. Like you said, I mean, Blue Buddha is great. You guys have a wonderful roster. And hats off to you as well, like for doing what you do, because we wouldn't be able to do our jobs without you guys being there constantly. Like, so reliable, so creative, so on point, pulling songs that are great. So it's all like a very like it's a team effort for sure. So thanks to you as well.
No, thanks, Bianca. It really means a lot, and it's amazing because competition wise, both on the supervision side and the pitch, sellers and buyers of music, but there's always room for everybody because, like you said earlier in our pre-chat, between there's traditional television, streaming content, video games, trailers, and
Oh,
then indie films to transition. If you want to talk a little bit about So Little Wing is it's an indie film, and that's it, probably gonna come out next year.
We don't have an exact air date yet, but yes, hopefully within early to mid 2024. It's airing on Paramount Plus, made in partnership with Awesomeness Studio, and directed by a filmmaker named Dean Israelite. It's an interesting coming of age story about a young girl who is her parents are basically getting a divorce and she's losing
Mhm.
her childhood home. So it's a very difficult time for her. It's a kind of a dark time for her, but in the midst of all of her struggles and challenges, she meets an older mentor figure who teaches her and introduces her to the world of pigeon racing, and it kind of opens her eyes to everything in life and gives her a more optimistic and positive outlook. I think it's a sweet, heartfelt family film, and I look forward to seeing it because it's literally being filmed right now. So it's very
Oh,
exciting. It's very new, very new.
yeah. Now the notes are starting to come back because I think we spoke about it or traded emails on it. And where's the setting? Where's it taking place?
In Portland.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
Okay, that's amazing. So then, and it kind of just to thread that needle popped in my mind is independent films that you have or might be working on in the future that are based in, let's say, let's pick Madrid, Spain.
Um,
So, mhm,
I mean, I don't. I would love to collaborate with a Spanish filmmaker for sure. I moonlight as a film programmer, so that is one connection I have to Spain. I'm the features narrative programmer of a festival called Evolution Mallorca International Film Festival. So that's unrelated to sync and music supervision, but in a way kind of interconnected because we also are very connected to the film space. I haven't yet. Fingers crossed, I do collaborate with a Spanish filmmaker at some point. But
mhm,
foreign cinema is actually the other main reason I was interested in supervision to begin with. It's just the marriage of my two passions, being able to see like music stories being told through music and cinema.
mhm,
Has always blown me away. I just didn't know that it was a thing, you know? Like I studied
mhm.
broadcast journalism in school. If I had only known that supervision was like a job, I would have done that a long time ago. I probably would have, this is so bad, I'm not going to say it. I'm like, wouldn't have gone to school, I would have gone straight to the music industry, gone to a bunch of shows, met a bunch of producers, and just would have like dived in head first, you know? But at the same time, we all go through our different paths. I feel like
Yeah,
everything happens for a reason too, and all
yeah.
of the experiences that we accumulate over the years happen for a reason. They lead us to what we're meant to do. So I don't regret anything, but I'm glad that I finally did find it because it feels good. It feels right.
No, well said. And it's even it's more reassuring, like you said, is you were on the right path and you learned as you went. But on the same hand, I think Bianca, the flip side of the coin, because Jackie Shu from Rogue Planet, shout out to Jackie. When on our panel, she was talking about to thread it is access to the pipeline, and she was saying our work today, will impact 5, 10, 15, 20 years from now of
Well,
future
definitely, I agree.
AAPIs. Yeah, and the biggest thing she was saying is once we have access to the pipeline, nurture it, keep it, don't let it die. And then same with, and then this is a good thread to the next sort of mentors and mentorship programs. Um, Jackie Shu and then Angela Lace and Rudy Chung, they talked about various programs. Do you do you have any capacity in that space, either mentoring AAPIs in
I'm
any?
actually mentoring a couple right now, not within like a specific organization, but people
Mhm.
have approached me and I've taken a couple. I mean, I don't have coordinators. I'm not up to that level of like, I'm not like, you know, cranking out 20 projects a year to the level where I can hire coordinators. I would love to get to that level at some point, but I do have a couple of mentees that I've been kind of chatting with. I think it's really important to give back and to support the future creatives, especially coming from a background where I pursued this career very late in life, or what people would consider is later than others. I guess it wasn't that late, but for me, I was just like, okay, I was 26 or 27. And I'm like, I'm going to start a career all over again. That's what my mom said. She's like, you're going to start all over again. Are you sure? And it's music. Are you sure? And I'm like, I'm positive. Trust me. I know what I'm doing.
Hmm.
Of course, I didn't know what I was doing, but you figure it out. As long as you're,
Yeah.
hardworking and determined, everything else will fall into place.
Yeah. No, that's amazing. So then, typically with that, is it sort of with your mentor mentee aspect? Is it once a month Zoom, or how does that kind of coalesce?
It's really casual. I mean, like sometimes we'll just be like, "Hey, what's up? Let's catch up," or like we'll go like deeper into it. Like, can you show me how to do clearances? Let's do pretend clearances. Like, but it hasn't been like, I guess it's not like as rigid of a schedule. But they kind of reach out to me whenever they have questions, or
Mhm.
I'll do check-ins to see if like, oh, how's the job hunt going?
Mhm.
I mean, I have an open door like with both of them. I just tell like my mentees that they can reach out whenever they need to. But yes, I am always like open to chatting with future creatives. I think that's really important, especially since I think it took me 100 cold emails before I found supervisors who are actually responsive.
Wow.
And there were only three or four, I think, that actually went on to do either a phone call or an in-person meeting. So I mean, it was probably tougher back then, but I mean, it's still, I mean, you've gotta give back. You've got to help our future creatives. I mean,
Mhm.
they are our
Mhm.
future. It's
Yeah.
important.
Yeah, it's interesting because I had a chat with Laura Webb the other day, and she was recounting. She'll do a lot of work with various music soups, and the amount of sometimes hundreds, if not thousands, of emails you guys can get,
Yeah.
and it's just that's unbelievable. But sometimes you just like you said, between if you reply to all your emails, you won't get any work done. So
I mean, I think it's really important to reply to the emails like that. Those
mhm.
are the ones that are like really, when people are reaching out, even if it's for a quick like 30-minute like Zoom or phone call, like
Yeah.
that's but I do also know what you mean. There's only so much time in a day. I have
Yeah.
like extreme OCD, so like if I don't respond to things, I don't know if you noticed, if I don't respond to things pretty quickly, even on a weekend, like it'll just bug me the whole day and I'll just keep thinking about it. Like I'm just like I respond right away to most things. And if I don't, there's probably something wrong with me. So,
Right.
yeah.
You're putting out a fire or a clearance, something. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I think that's a pretty good setup, Bianca, as far as one big piece of advice that you would have for AAPIs entering the entertainment space. What would be your top piece of advice?
Just, just go out there and, just follow whatever it is that
Mhm.
drives you, no matter how little support you get from people that are considered your closest friends, closest relatives. I mean, it will be challenging. I'm not gonna lie to the future creatives. It's always a challenge. I feel like anything that's really worthwhile is
Mhm.
challenging, but the rewards that you get, the rewarding feeling, the fulfillment that you get once you're able to accomplish or are on the road to accomplishing your goals is totally worth it. And this is coming from somebody who I've been supervising for 6.5 years now, and I still consider myself a baby supervisor. I'm still growing. I'm
Mhm.
still learning every day. With every project, I'm learning something new. I am definitely not a senior supervisor. I'm like still like maybe like a teenager supervisor, that's still growing. Just as cliche as it sounds, never give up. Don't be afraid to ask for help because we've all been there. And even though it may seem daunting, everyone is supportive. We're lucky to work in an industry where even though people may view it as competition, it's friendly competition. We want to see our friends succeed. We want to see even people that we don't know personally succeed because we've been there before. We've been through those same challenges and we know what it's like. So just reach out to people that you admire, like keep going for whatever drives you,
Mhm.
whatever makes you happy in the morning and happy to keep on doing it each and every day. Just don't ever let that go because this is the only chance we get. There- There's really no turning back. It's just we just get one chance. Why not do what makes you happy?
100%. And I think, to dovetail that, because me being a sync agent on the pitching side, a seller of music, with a music supervisor, your job, and and this is a shout out to Jen Piken, who she has I interviewed her the other day. So she has the three C's, and I'm paraphrasing, where it's the creative, the collaboration, and the clearance.
Yeah.
So I bring that up because I wanted to say, looking at your job, what's one, if someone's considering, hey, I want to be a music supervisor like Bianca, bar none, clearance, publishing, it's multifaceted jobs. So what would be, you know, you got to have it stone cold and know it inside out. What one aspect of your job would you say that would be?
Clearance, clearance, clearance. You must absolutely know how to clear. And once you get to like maybe a list level, like some people like hire, clearance houses to do it for them. But
Mhm,
if you don't understand the ins and outs of clearances, I feel like that's the bulk of supervision. Like sometimes there's some projects where it's like it's great if you're able to vibe creatively, but you're going to be clearing every day for the most part, especially in the beginning.
mhm,
Um, and it helps to be meticulous when it comes to attention to detail. And even though people kind of OCD gets a bad rap, I feel like OCD is helpful in certain like jobs and situations. So it's like attention to detail and yeah, organization are crucial when wanting to be a supervisor. I mean, the creative is great. Like, you obviously have to have a good ear and a good
mhm,
vibe for what fits and what doesn't.
mhm.
But if you can't clear, that's a big no-no. Got to learn the clearances first.
Clearance, 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 and also correct. With different personalities at the studio, then sometimes you have to be diplomatic,
Yeah.
and then sometimes or you have to play hardball with, say, if it's you're trying to get a certain budget, and then that publisher or label, they're not budging, and then you could be sweeter, you're spicy, you're like, no, well, hey, that's all we have, that's in it. But then you know that if there's that chance that you could that can walk away from the license quote. But so you just then correct, it comes down to relationships. Who's going to play ball, and who's going to be cool, and who's going to be otherwise.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I don't know, like I don't know that I've ever played hardball just because like I like to be like chill. Like not chill's the wrong word. I just like to keep it as real as possible with everyone. And I feel like for the most part we all have like our defaults that we kind of reach out to when it comes to like music searches and whatnot.
Mhm.
So, but like there definitely are cases where you're trying to get like songs that are very expensive and very well known, and those can be tricky when you don't have the budget. But
Mm.
like I said earlier, it's like there's so much music out there. I mean, there's so much. Even though you can't get that Stones or that Beatles song, there's so much more out there that you can discover and introduce to your fellow collaborators that might be even better than that really expensive Van Morrison song that got declined from the get go. It just depends. But yeah, clearances are important. And like you said, also being I don't know, probably just being good with different personalities is
Mhm.
important too.
Mhm.
Because like not everyone's so different, and some people I don't know. Everything's a new learning experience with every project. So
Yeah. So that said, Bianca, to thread that needle, as far as indie bands, or if you suggest two alternate tracks are from an unknown band, but sort of, I like to hang my hat on the saying of best song wins for the scene and the narrative, depending what's playing the picture. Are there cases where, like you said, it could be subjective? You could think, hey, this works, it's a slam dunk, but then the showrunner, it's a crapshoot, right? Because they may not feel what you're feeling.
yeah, we're all so different.
Mhm.
Um, I don't know. I try with every music search, I try to give a good variety of genres and moods that could work for the scene, whether it's the opposite of what you're seeing on screen. That might kind of work. Like if you see something really sad, something like crazy like energetic or vice versa. It's like, why am I blanking on the name? There's a name for the opposites game. I'm forgetting the name. There's a name for it. You might know. I'm blanking right now. There's a
Um,
term for when you do opposite of what's on screen, orally, but I'm blanking on it.
it'll come back to us. I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
Yes, there's a word for it, and I'm totally blanking.
Mhm.
But there have been situations where I've seen eye to eye. It's more rare, I think, just because once a writer or a showrunner has something written in the script, they tend to want to go for those clearances from the get go.
Mhm.
And if you're lucky enough to have a project that has a healthy budget, then you're actually able to get those songs. But that's not always the case.
Mhm.
I don't know. It really depends. There have been situations where I'm just like, oh, like this is great. Like we landed this. This is awesome. And then other situations where I'm like, oh, that's an option I wouldn't have thought of as my first choice, but I'm still glad they picked it because it actually
Mm.
does really serve the purpose well.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I don't know if I answered your question. I mean, I'm sorry. I can keep talking if I didn't, or if you want to.
No, you
Yeah.
did, you did, because I think there are a couple of things to unpack and, correct what you just described, Bianca, is, the dread, the temp love. Someone
Temple.
temp, they fall, I gotta have this track by you two, and you're like, yeah, it's gonna cost you though. And then once you tell them the budget, so then correct, then you're on a scramble. If you're like, hey, Sunday Bloody Sunday by you two did not clear, so you go to your short list and say, hey, I'm trying to replace this. The lyric has to talk about, Sunday Bloody Sunday. Maybe the show is the scenes, it's the war in Ukraine. So then, like you said, the lyric has to hit the tempo, the melancholy, the despair. So those sort of key points that you articulate to a sync agent to come up with alternate tracks for you. Okay, so yeah, so safe to say, correct. Um, when you send a brief to your key sync agents or publisher or manager to replace a track, there are a couple parameters that are non-negotiable depending whether it's the lyric or the tempo. So if you could touch on that a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, like it's pretty much what you said. You have a music search. You've got the budget. You've got the scene description, the themes, certain things that are non-negotiable, whether it be budget or the general vibe of what you're trying to capture in the song. I feel like for the most part, your side of the biz is super good at hitting things on the head when I need it. It really is just because everyone's taste is so different. Sometimes what you and I may think is hitting something on the head isn't necessarily doing that for a producer or a studio exec. And
Mhm.
that's when that's when your job becomes really tricky as you know, I'm sure, because then we'll go through more than multiple rounds of music searches for the same search.
Mhm.
Um, it's an interesting process because you kind of have to, and I'm sure you've dealt with this too, you're kind of slightly pivoting each time, trying to take a different slant
Mhm.
or perspective on the same theme, which can be interesting. It can be kind of like repetitive because you're like, okay, well, I did this search already. What else could they want? Like, it can't be any more uplifting and like epic or like, positive than what I've sent. But you kind of have to just keep hitting, like just keep going until you find that track that's the winner. Um, there have definitely been instances where I've gone through like anywhere between 10 to 15 rounds sometimes. Hopefully that's not often. That is like probably one of like the rarer situations. Usually by round two, like we'll find a winner. But
Mhm.
um
Mhm.
but you and I have both been through those those very tricky music searches that are very particular. But it also enables you to get more creative. You're like, okay, let me think outside the box.
Mhm.
Maybe they wouldn't think of it like an artist that's like, I don't know, classical meets like punk or something, It's like,
Mhm.
and then that can even maybe that one song can change the producer's like outlook on the scene. Like, oh wait, this is different. Like I didn't even know
Yeah.
what I was looking for until I heard this song. And those moments are like really rare and awesome because it's just like, oh wow, like I never really would have thought they would have gone for that, but they did. And it's amazing that they
Yeah.
did because that was one of my favorites anyway.
Right.
Um
Mhm.
but yeah, it can be challenging at times for sure.
So yeah, and I think the good takeaway there is, for potential AAPIs looking to get whether into music supervision or being a sync agent, like you said, is or something I brought up in a past podcast is opportunities to internships. Because what you learn in the classroom and in the real world application is critical.
Hmm.
But Bianca, just to bookend it with, after having Music Soup, the cleaning lady, did you find did you have a lot of maybe AAPI labels or reps reaching out to you once you worked in that and said, "Hey, here's other music you could check out." How does that kind of work? Once someone finds a project you're working on and they do their homework, do the floodgates open where they're trying to make contact, or it just kind of depends?
I think it kind of depends. I wouldn't say that music agencies, labels, or pubs necessarily reached out, with the exception of you, because we met both through a mutual friend and also through the cleaning lady. I think it was Marie. Yeah, Marie Jamora, one of our directors, introduced me to Ella J. Bosco. Shout out to her. She introduced me to Bubble Tea, which is such a great song, and a few of
Mhm,
her other tracks. Which like a lot of the introductions like that happen through like a third person,
mhm, mhm.
but I feel like for seasons 1 and 2 of the cleaning lady, mostly like individual artists have like reached out from the
Mm,
AAPI community, which is great, but I encourage them to keep reaching out to the production. I mean, you never know what's in store for the upcoming seasons. For season 3, of course, and we even discovered new Filipino and Asian artists like on our own too.
mm,
It was great. It was really fun, and it's all
no,
of course always wonderful to be able to include AAP artists on a show that is about our people. It's important. Like Ruby Ibarra, during the panel, Miranda was talking about the time she decided Us was going to be in season 1, and she's just like, this is like the anthem of the cleaning
yeah.
lady. Us by Ruby Ibarra is the anthem, and I'm just I
Mhm.
couldn't agree more. Like it's perfect, when you find like those magic moments and like those really special artists, like it's great and it carries on into the future. Like the last
Mhm.
time I saw Ruby, like I mentioned to her, like I would love to collaborate with you like on a film or something, and she's so like multi-talented and working on
Yeah.
so many things at once, but like now that we are connected, like, and I feel that
Mhm.
same way with the Filipino and Asian artists that I've connected with over the past 2 seasons. Like I'm going to keep you in mind for
Yeah.
future projects that I'm on. This is how we
Mhm.
grow our community, by supporting one another. Yeah,
Yeah, no, and Ruby's very, very because seeing her live, and then you just see, you know, she's the real deal, and just she
totally.
brings it a hundred
She's
percent, and
she's such a
yeah,
baddie. I love it. It's
shout
great.
out to Ruby, but yeah,
Yes.
so then as far as what's on the side closing note to kind of set the stage, what's as far as future projects. I know we talked about Little Wing earlier, but more film for you, more television. It's kind of a mix, just depends what comes what opportunity comes at the door.
I think I'm focusing mostly on film going forth. Like I said earlier, film is kind of what inspired me to get into supervision, or one of the things that inspired me to get into supervision. So nothing's for sure yet, but I'm in talks with a couple of international filmmakers on features, couple debut features. I don't know what the future brings yet, but
Sure.
actually, in honor of AAPI month, I should probably mention that a good friend of mine, an Australian Filipino filmmaker by the name of James J. Robinson, is premiering his short film on Golden Days on an online magazine called Nowness.com. I don't know if you're familiar with it. They're kind of like all inclusive of like arts, culture, film, media, internet culture. It's kind of just like a really cool online arts magazine.
Cool.
He's done other short films before this, including one of my favorites, Inang Manila, which I recommend to all of my fellow AAPI folks. It's about just growing up in the Philippines, and his films are very special. They I won't give it away, but
Yeah.
go ahead and check out his work. He's great. He's an amazingly talented Filipino filmmaker, and And yeah, like we'll see what the future brings. But I do definitely, I think it's really important, like you said, to support our community, for us to be collaborating with each other. We can bring each other up and rise together. I think it's great. And I want to continue to work with more AAPI artists in the future.
Well, that's amazing, and thank you so much, Bianca. We'll definitely, when we post this episode, we can share the links that you just spoke about and have your contact info. So if people want to collab, but yeah, time flies by, and it was a great chat, and I really appreciate you and the work that you do in the community, and look forward to next year so we can, continue the chat and you know, continue to foster and the community and work on collabs. So with that, thanks everybody for tuning in. Thank you, Bianca, for joining us today.
Thank you,
And
Tom. Thank you so much.
yeah,
It was a lot of fun.
absolutely. It's always a great chat. And we'll catch you on the next episode. Smash that like button, subscribe, and catch you on the other side. Namaste.
Go.